Hello and welcome to 5 Minute Magic from Creativity for Sale podcast, a quick fire episode sharing tips and tricks from the pages of the book of the same title. Yes, Creativity for Sale. Every week I'll be sharing one or two ideas that could give you an actionable takeaway for your creative career, your business, or just a food for thought for the weekend ahead. These tips are taken from the audiobook and you can find a link to the full version in the show notes. In this episode, I want to pick apart a creative industry favorite slogan, and that is, I don't know what I'm doing. I can say that once upon a time, I was very happy, put my hand up and admit to the fact that most of my success equaled happy accidents. But over time, the supply of happy accidents gets replaced with knowledge and experience. At some point, our work needs to be based on the latter to act like a safety scaffold for the times when we can experiment.
I don't know what I'm doing. Of course, on your journey, there will be times when you don't know what you're doing. Everyone has times where they'll readily admit they have no idea what they're doing. Life constantly throws us new challenges that have to be solved afresh. There are also situations where you don't want to be told that someone doesn't know what they're doing. A pilot giving a tannoy announcement, for instance. Or in surgery for an operation when you've already been anaesthetised. Thankfully, the creative industry is one of the very few places where you can plead your ignorance, and you might even get a round of applause. It's not a deal breaker. In fact, for many insiders, it's the opposite. There are endless examples of when experienced creative professionals got it wrong, and probably endless examples of where projects were more happy accident than planning. Learning that it's sometimes more about luck than judgment can be very encouraging for newbie creatives. There are many variables that influence the outcome of any finished creative work. There's no set process or formula, as it depends on a combination of everything from budgets to time to the physical environment and even the weather when it comes to shooting photography on a set outdoors. However, this isn't to suggest that it's always a good idea to shout about not knowing what you're doing. If you're invested in your career and genuinely passionate about what you do, you should strive to know what you're doing to the best of your ability and be able to demonstrate this to clients. Going into a meeting and telling the room that you're not really sure how things are done will not land you the project. In other words, being a new creative professional involves a balance of knowing and accepting that there are things you can't know. People take on projects that they haven't got a clue how to execute every day, and they can make it work when they know how to join the dots and are prepared to dig deep to find the answers they need. This is all part of the process and an essential part of personal growth. However, creatives should never stop striving to know or better their craft, sharpen their skills, and expand their knowledge and expertise. This is also an essential part of personal growth. This lesson is one that I learned in a somewhat unconventional way, through starting a band. Growth can happen in mysterious ways. Let me set the scene. I was a fresh-faced teenager living on a sonic diet of the most amazing music arriving from every direction. And perhaps unsurprisingly, it didn't take me long to develop the idea to form my own band with some of my more musically inclined friends. We were scrappy kids, and we were on a mission to play a gig as soon as we could. And somehow, I scrambled enough cash together to buy a second-hand bass guitar. Our target interest was centred around a specific genre, death metal, which didn't require too many honed skills to get the approval of an often very drunk audience. We looked to the top of the genre for our inspiration and neglected pretty much everything else on the musical spectrum. Somehow, we did well. Our tracks were pretty good, and it was a feeling like no other. When a friend of the family, a locally renowned jazz musician, suggested that I come and collect some educational notebooks with scales and exercises, you can imagine how much I was put off by the prospect. At this point, I should probably point out that I was only 15. Did I really want to spend hours learning basic scales that were nowhere near what I actually wanted to play with my band? So, like an on-brand teenager, I agreed the time and date to show up. Then I never did. When suggestions followed to learn classic hard rock tunes or blues covers or whatever else might serve as musical education, my response was that I didn't want to waste my time. Now, you can probably see where I went wrong in neglecting my musical history, but it took me a while to start analysing song structures, melodies and scales logic to inform me of the very basic foundation of music. At some point, much later, I realised that every generation has a distinct era, with a particular fashion, architectural style, range of drugs, shape of vehicles, and musical soundtrack to daily life. And it's sometimes easy, especially when you're 15, to forget that past decades had their own distinct features. Every decade is now enshrined in the vast catalogue of music that defines that time, and this catalogue is full of lessons for those who are willing to listen and learn. You can see the origins of our creativity as the ultimate cover band analogy. By applying our own personality and expression, we can create our unique version of creativity. Our creativity choices, rhythm, timing, and delivery make us unique. However, it is part of our journey to make ourselves familiar with what was here before, to determine how it shapes us, and to realise how emulating it can aid our future progress. When we look at the available 12 notes, full colour spectrum, or letters of the alphabet, we can sometimes feel that our choices are limited. The truth is very much the opposite. They are just the building blocks, just the beginning.